Good morning to you once again. It's Wednesday, the 25th of February, 2026. The program is On the Lord's Side, Christian Perspectives on News and Current Events. My name is Olufemi Oguntokun. You can follow me on X at Olufemi OG. You can follow Gospel Bells Radio on X at Gospel Bells Radio. Many people in Nigeria engaged with a clip from a video of Chief Razak Okoya, one of the billionaires in Nigeria, one of the most distinguished and successful entrepreneurs in Nigeria. He is now an elderly man. I cannot place his age right now, but I'm going to get his age just before we finish engaging with this story. And he's known for so many things. He's known for, being one of the foremost Muslims in Nigeria, one of the billionaires in Nigeria, and one of the notable men from Lagos State. The name Okoya, when you mention the name Okoya in Lagos State and in Nigeria, it's a name that opens doors. He's also very close to the president. He's also well known for being married to a much younger lady. This lady, Chief Mrs. Shade Okoya, they met when she was an undergraduate at the University of Lagos, and he is much older, but nevertheless the relationship has lasted for so long. By my guess, and I may not be accurate about this, the relationship should have run into maybe more than 25 years or thereabout. Of course, when this relationship started, it made the news then. At that time, there were no blogs, no social media to discuss the matter at that time. But it was there over all the magazines, the soft sell magazines of those days. And not many people gave the couple a chance to survive for that long, or to stay together for long. But they have. The reason for that I do not know, best known to them, but they have. And from what you see from the outside, it looks like a good relationship. When the couple steps out for social functions, you see Mrs. Shade Okoya being the beautiful doting wife, doting on the much older Chief Razak Okoya, husband. But of course, Chief Razak Okoya was married before he married the much younger Shade Okoya. Of course, he had children before he had children by Chief Mrs. Shade Okoya. So we are talking about a polygamy setting here. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about a polygamy setting here. And so what put them on the spotlight yesterday would be this clip from a video released where the chief, Razak Okoya, said of his older children that they have failed. He said of his older children that they have failed, and that he would not want his current children to fail like the senior ones. And the blogger who released this on X singled out that quote: "I don't want my current children to fail like their senior ones." And that was something really telling, for a man to say, my senior children failed. But that, of course, he was referring to the children he had by his former wives or former wife, the children he had before he married the much younger Mrs. Shade Okoya. And he said, "I don't want them to fail like their senior ones." According to this blog, it says Nigerian billionaire industrialist Razak Okoya has revealed plans to hand over his business empire to his younger children, saying the decision is driven by his desire to secure their future and prevent past mistakes from repeating themselves. Speaking about his succession strategy, the founder of Eleganza Group explained that he is intentionally grooming the younger generation to take over the reins of his business interests. According to him, the move is to ensure continuity and long-term stability. Quote, this is what he said, quote, "I want to pass everything to my younger children because I don't want them to fail like the senior ones," he said, hinting at lessons learned from earlier experiences. Okoya noted that experience is a crucial factor in leadership and emphasized the importance of focus, honesty, determination, and punctuality. He added that his children have been exposed to the inner workings of the business, including visits to the factory floor to help them understand operations firsthand. The billionaire who shares his younger children with his wife, Shadi Okoya, said the plan is structured to ensure a smooth transition. He stressed that while others may inherit established systems, the children must understand the effort it takes to build and sustain a business. And I wanted to listen to what this. Just listen to the voice of this man speaking about this matter, and then we're going to engage with it because you find that there's just so much to engage with.
It's land the way we are doing it. It's a purgatory which hold the future. They hold the future. 79 years old, I have to pass it on to them. And I don't want them to feel like they're senior one. So, number one is the experience. Number two, they have to learn how to be focused, honest, determination, and they have to be punctual on what they are doing. Of course, our elder one is being trained in Europe, but yet, it has to be local ideas. He has to follow, we take out of the factory to see what we are doing. Not, you are trained there, but that's a different level playing ground. They already have everything for them. Here we are going to build everything for ourselves. I have to know your people. So we bring her home regularly to see what we are doing and how to be done.
Wow, interesting. And then you find out, you see how the media works, where the man, Chief Razak Okoya, who I can now confirm is, guess what, 86 years old. He was born 12th January 1940. Where he said that, look, I'm going to pass my business on to my younger children. I don't want them to feel like the senior ones. Then he went on to speak about the qualities for success in business, the qualities that he hopes the younger children would imbibe so that they can be successful in business. But the media singled out the part where he said, I don't want the younger ones to feel like the senior ones. And, of course, the media loves sensationalism. The media knows that it is sensationalism that sells. But, in this case, I'm going to side with the media, and I'm going to say that the media has rightly identified the more important portion of what this man said. We are talking about a polygamy setting here. We're talking about an 86-year-old man who is married to the 48-year-old Shadi Okoya. So Shadi Okoya was born 25th April 1977. Chief Razak Okoya was born 12th January 1940. He is 86. She is now 48. The 86-year-old man now talking about his succession planning for his business empire and saying, look, I'm going to pass things over to the younger children. By saying that he meant that he will be passing his business interest to
land the way we are.
Sorry about that. He will be passing his business interest to the children of Shadi Okoya, and of course, in that video, generally released to the public, you see the pictures of the children of Mrs. Shadi Okoya there. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because of a commentary on this video that I came across on Twitter. This is what this person wrote. I want to read it. Quote, "This is that side of polygamy. Instead of the man to own up to his failure as a parent, he favors a child or children from a section over others. And when he passed away, the seed of hate and problems he sowed would begin to germinate. Polygamy is not healthy. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk." End of quote. So that is the commentary by this person and Lugwa on X, saying that, look, what you just listened to, this 86-year-old billionaire saying, look, my business empire will pass on to the children of my younger wife. That what you just listened to there is that side of polygamy that many people don't want to talk about. That side of polygamy that many people try to push away, try to pretend does not exist. The Chief Okoya is older than Mrs. Shadi Okoya by 38 years. He's 38 years older. So now that he's 86 and she is 48, I hope you can understand the dynamics there. The dynamics of an 86-year-old man aging, married to a 48-year-old woman who is always by his side, dotting on him, and that is the credit of Shadi Okoya from what we can see. Always dotting on the man. But if you are smart, you must know there's something called dependence there. Dependence. But at that point, the 86-year-old must have become, in some respect, in fact, in some major respect, dependent on the 48-year-old wife. And you see this video, and I'm thinking like a lawyer now. This video, some would say, was probably planned for certain purposes, because in law, if this video was not released at all, and if after the passing of this billionaire, because every human being will pass on from this world, if after his passing it comes to light that he has willed all his business interests to the children of Mrs. Shadi Okoya, now that could be grounds for the other children, the senior children, to attack, to challenge such a will, or to challenge such a disposition of his asset. They could challenge and say, look, this lady, much younger, exerted undue influence on the man in his old age. And that would be a credible and plausible ground in law to challenge a will. You can say that, look, the testator has disposed of his assets to the children of the woman who exerted influence on him. The woman was 36 years younger. The man was advanced in age. The woman was exerting influence on him and got him to make those dispositions against his own free will. That would be the argument before the court. So a video like this would be used to counter an argument like that if that scenario should ever play out. Because you want a video like this to be out there in the public, so that if that scenario should ever play out, where the senior children decides to challenge any testamentary disposition by the older man to the children of the younger wife, you find that a video like this would then be brought up to counter that and say, look, this man said this to the whole world, and you can see him in good health, in control of his faculties. At the time he was making the disposition, he had full mental capacity to do it, and that he did it long before his own passing. But then, that's me putting on my lawyer hat, and somebody will say, oh, that's all conspiracy theory. Maybe this man was just speaking his mind. Maybe he was just saying that, and that there has been no pressure. There has been no pressure on him. But you see, the underlying portion of this is what this gentleman said in his commentary on this video. Don't listen to a video like this where a man says, oh, I'm giving it to the children of my younger wife because the senior ones have failed. Don't look at that and just say, well, the senior ones failed and he wants to give it to the... You have to see the imbalance and the dangers in polygamy. I've always related this experience to many people, and I know I've said it a number of times on this program, but pardon me, let me repeat it again. I remember in my early days as a junior lawyer in Nigeria, and I had to take the instructions of an elderly man, to prepare his will. Take his instructions. I was invited by the father of a friend, who said to me, "Look, there's a man who is critically ill and infirmed, and may need to settle his affairs, because, of course, at that time that elderly man was married to a much younger lady. I suspect at that time that he had been separated or distanced, from his first family and from his senior children. And I got to that home to take the instruction. And as I sat down, the man was lying, of course, on a bed. He was infirmed, and the younger wife was the one going around. Of course, the younger wife in perfect health, but taking care of the man and moving here and moving there. And she was the one doing all the talking and saying, the man has to do all these things. He has to settle this, but we don't want problem if anything should happen and all that. And I said, look, don't worry, let the man talk. Let me listen to him. I have to be sure that he has the mental capacity to make his testamentary dispositions. I have to ensure that that he knows exactly what he wanted to do at that time. So I spoke to him, and of course, he had, in my evaluation, he had sound mental capacity to make the testamentary disposition. And then he began to talk, and as he talked, the woman would be nearby, walking out, staying by the door, and saying all sorts of things, and would interject sometimes to remind him of something, interject again to say, are you sure are you sure you want to do that? And at some point the man started weeping. Well, he was weeping profusely, and I don't know whether you can picture the scene of, by my own estimation, the man would be maybe like 90, or a man in his late 80s, weeping profusely as he spoke. He continued to speak. He continued to talk about what he wanted to do with his property, but he was weeping profusely. But when I was much younger, maybe not as mature as this, I did not ask him why he was weeping, but I could guess that he wept because he was, with his own mouth, disinheriting his senior children and giving everything to the young wife who was with him, and the children of the young wife. And as he made these things, as he said these things, and as I recorded them, he wept. I wept most profusely. I do not know exactly what he was weeping about. My guess is that he was weeping because, well, he knew that he could not have made any other, he could not have given any other instruction in that circumstance other than the one that he gave, meaning that in the presence of that woman, he could not have said anything differently from what he said. The point I'm trying to make is that when people become advanced in age, naturally, by the order of things, even when they are not infirmed by disease or sickness, but because they've grown old, they necessarily become dependent on the younger, elder people who are in their lives. And the scenario of a husband and a wife, the husband becomes, dependent on the wife, and the husband who is married to a man who is married to more than one wife will then become very dependent on the woman with him at the time of his old age. And let's not deceive ourselves. People like that, the spouse who is with the older spouse must know the power and the influence that he or she wields at that time. And that's exactly what I suspect is happening there. Even if that is not the case, that is the way that the so-called senior ones, as he referred to them, that's the way the senior children will see it. They will look at the younger wife and say, she's exerting so much influence on him. I mean, imagine that. I mean, can you imagine? Let's just flip the coin. Let's just flip the coin that in this interview, because in this interview, just take a look at that video, or take a look at Chief Razak Okoya going to a social function nowadays. Do you suppose that he is in that state of health, to go out alone without Mr. Okoya somewhere nearby, taking care of him? And do you suppose in this video that as he sat down for this video recording that Mr. Okoya was not somewhere around watching and listening? I mean, you'd be very naive to suppose that, he chose on his own to have this interview, and that as he sat down to the interview, he said to Okoya, please leave me, I want to say something, I don't want it to be here. You'd be very naive to say that could be the case. I mean, that it could be the case, but it's a remote possibility. If you know how things really happen in scenarios like this, you would be right, or rather, you would be wise to place a bet to say that the wife was somewhere there in the room, not shown in the video, but somewhere there in the background, listening to everything going on. She must be the one who organized these things. At some point, you would be wise to place a bet to say that the wife was somewhere there in the room, not shown in the video, but somewhere there in the background, listening to everything going on. She must be the one who organized these things. At some point, you would be wise to place a bet to say that the wife was somewhere there in the room, not shown in the video, but somewhere there in the background, listening to everything going on. She must be the one who organized these things. in a person's life. There are some other people. There are some people who have the exceptional grace, even in their late 80s, in their early 90s. They are still quite strong, and are able to make certain decisions for themselves, and they are in a position where they can put their feet and say, "This is what I want to do." There are some people like that, but it's not in all cases. And from the videos of this man that I've seen at social event, it does not look like he is enjoying that kind of exceptional grace. So the point I want to make is that just flip the coin. So tell me whether it is possible that with Mr. Okoya somewhere in the background, that this man could have said, "Look, I'm going to pass all my business interests to my senior children because I want the children, my younger children, to grow up to a certain age, to become more matured, to know certain things before I can hand over to them." Do you suppose that could have taken place, with Mr. Okoya somewhere in the background, and then her husband, who obviously has become dependent on her, could be saying, "No, I'm not going to give my business interest to my younger children. I'll give it to the senior ones, and then the senior ones, I trust them to take care of the younger ones." Well, if you believe that, Americans will say, you can believe anything. From a Christian perspective, the point I want to make is that what this man said yesterday and the discussions in the culture around it is a reminder to us. All these things are reminders to us of things that are done not in accordance with how God intended that they should be done. Right. Jesus said of divorce and of so many that said it was not so. It was not so from the beginning. And when the gentleman wrote and said this is that side of polygamy, we found that things that were not so from the beginning, when we attempt to make them so, we're going to reap the whirlwind of that disobedience. Many people, try to justify polygamy by pointing to so many other things. They point to David, point to this and that, some patriarchs of the faith, Jacob, who were polygamists, and they say, well, these people were there. Some people should hear the voice of Jesus Christ saying to them, it was not so at the beginning. It was not so at the beginning. I think that they were not so at the beginning should not be made so even now. Of course, I do recognize that there are certain imbalances and tensions in even monogamous marriages. Many people in Nigeria point to the affairs of the late Chief F.R.A. Williams, Advocate of Nigeria, who, notwithstanding that was married to only one woman, notwithstanding that he had only 4 children, his estate became a source of dispute, so intractable that it has not even been resolved till now, and at least one of the children has died. So I do know that sometimes even in monogamous situations you find things like this, because it is the whole thing about the danger of wealth. Wealth comes with a burden and greed and covetousness. When that man went to Jesus Christ and said, "Look, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me," Jesus responded not by saying, "Oh, I don't want to double into that." He responded not by saying, Can you give me the details? Did your father leave instructions? He did not. He just said, "Look, beware of covetousness." Jesus said, just beware of covetousness. Because when you talk about inheritances, you are talking about the things that you did not work for, things not your own, but which you want, and then you're ready to kill and to cause all sorts of problems just because you're not able to get. And Jesus said, be careful of covetousness. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of the things that he owns. Now, having said all this, I must confess, I must admit that I do not know as a fact the nuances of the relationship between Chief Razak Okoya and Mrs. Shade Okoya. We're only speaking from what we can observe and informed by the commentary of this gentleman who said, having listened to that clip, you must be reminded that polygamy is not healthy. And I make bold to say, anything being done in the manner not intended by God can never be healthy. It will always end in pains. It will always end in agony. It will always end in strife. It will always end by creating tensions and discord and disunity and bringing out to the forefront the wickedness, the latent wickedness in the heart of human beings. I have no idea how the senior children of Chief Razak Okoya, how they received this message yesterday, because by that statement that the man made, he described them as failures. I don't want my current children to fail like the senior ones. That must be one of the most devastating things to hear. Imagine you put yourself in their shoes, hearing your father, and now married to a younger wife, now with younger children, saying, "Oh, I don't want my younger children, my current children." I don't want my current children. Indeed, if you look at the sentence, let us hope that maybe he misspoke or he did not pay enough attention to his choice of word. But when he said, "I don't want my current children," meaning that, well, the other ones, senior ones, are not my children, strictly speaking, any longer. I don't want my current children to feel like the senior ones. Just imagine how the senior ones would take it. Where some people will come and say, "Oh, those senior ones, so they were horrible people. They were bad children." Some could say, I do not know whether they indeed have been acting responsibly or not. They could say, "Oh, the man had to start his life all over again." But no, it is neither here nor there. But if one is tempted to do something in a manner not originally intended by God, that person should think twice and thrice and think about it over and over again before dabbling into it. Those who do things in a way that God did not originally plan, they are going to see, they are going to reap the consequences. They are going to see and understand why it is never wise. It is never wise to go against the precepts of God. I won't say that I do hope that Chief Razak Okoya would have wisdom to properly organize his affairs before he is taken away by his maker. I do pray that his estate and the manner of disposing his estate will not lead to all sorts of evil and wickedness that we have that human beings have experienced in the manner in matters like this. Go and look at all of human history. People have died, people have killed themselves, people have committed all sorts of atrocities over estates, over inheritances, and I do pray that will not be the case with the estate of Chief Razak Okoya. But as it is right now, we already have an inkling of what is to come. But I do pray that much evil will not befall him or his family or his children, the senior ones and the younger ones, after his passing. But for us who read these things, who listen to these things, who are observers, who are commenting on this, who are engaging with it, it is for us to organize our affairs. It is for us to apply our hearts to wisdom, and to say to ourselves, I'm not going to do anything that was not so from the beginning. If it was not so from the beginning, I'm not going to dabble into it. And I pray the Lord will give us grace indeed, that our affairs and our lives will never become a proverb. When the Bible says, and I will make them a proverb, or they become a proverb, that's to say about people who have done evil or wicked things. God saying, well, I'm going to do something to them, something in their life that will now make them, that will make people, when people hear about them, to say, I'm never going to be like that. I do pray that will not be your case. You never become a proverb in Jesus' name. We pray for Chief Razak Okoya that he will come to the knowledge of the saving grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, even before his passing, and that he will receive grace to properly organize his affairs. But hey, that gentleman was absolutely right when he said, look, this is that side of polygamy. It is correct. Indeed, that video reminds us of that side of polygamy, reminds us of that side of things done not the way originally intended by God. Okay, and next I want to engage with this story. You must have come across it. Yesterday, the French news agency AFP reported that the Nigerian government paid Boko Haram 2 billion naira for the release of 230 abducted St. Mary's Catholic School girls, and that the money was delivered in cash via helicopter to one Ali Ngode, a Boko Haram commander in Goza. Now, if true, this would be really devastating. If true, this would be really sad. The allegation here is that the money was delivered in cash via helicopter to Ali Ngode, a Boko Haram commander in Goza, Borno State, which is a Boko Haram territory. According to 4 sources, the terrorists demanded 40 million naira per head, around $7 million in total. Now, this is a report by the French news agency AFP. This is not an agency known for being flippant, and being irresponsible about matters like this. It says it can confirm. So, in a decent society, this is where all institutions of government ought to rise up and put the government to the strictest proof, to the strictest standards, to deny this. Ordinarily, you would expect the National Assembly to be quite vociferous about this and to call immediately for inquiries, because what is alleged there, what the French news agency says it can confirm here, is something truly horrifying, something that should make us have a second look at what exactly is going on. It is not something beyond reason, really. It is not something that we should be saying that people have not contemplated in Nigeria. Many people suspect that has been happening, but now that it has been confirmed in terms of the amount, in terms of how it took place, in terms of who received it, well, we should begin to think very deeply, and perhaps, moderate. We should redirect our prayers, that we now know exactly what is happening. According to AFP, the French news agency, to confirm the receipt of the money, Ali Ngode traveled to Cameroon to communicate receipts to the Nigerian government, after which 100 guests were released in exchange for release of some captured Boko Haram fighters before full release of the girls. The Nigerian government initially denied paying any ransom to the terrorists, but failed to provide details of the operations in Papiri, Niger State, despite pressure from Nigerians. AFP News says it has reached out to the NSA, no rebuttal for reactions, but no reply. So the French news agency said, look, now it can confirm what happened. It has now reached out to the National Security Advisor of Nigeria, no rebuttal, but it has not responded. Remember that when those guys, take some steps back, those 230 girls were abducted from the St. Mary's Catholic School, and when they were abducted, there was quite an uproar all over the country and all over the world. And it was around that time that Donald Trump stepped into this matter and said, look, this matter of Christian genocide must stop. So these girls were kidnapped, and when there was this outcry from everyone, the government, at some point, Nuhu Ribadu, National Security Advisor, met with some parents and the school authorities and said, look, don't worry, the girls will be returned. And many people were saying, well, how can you be that sure? And many people thought maybe a military operation was in the works at that time. And lo and behold, 100 of the girls were released. And many people asked the question, how did you get them released? Was there a battle? Was there a military confrontation? Was there an operation? Did you confront the fighters? How did you know where they were kept? How did you know where the terrorists were staying? Did you attack them? How did you get intelligence? Remember, raid on Entebbe, when the Israeli forces raided Uganda. If you can recall, the raid on Entebbe, when the Israeli forces raided Uganda, it was in 1976. It was launched in response to the hijacking of an international civilian passenger flight operated by Air France between Tel Aviv and Paris. And there was that hijacking. And of course, Israel had many of our citizens in that airplane, and so there was a raid on Entebbe. The hostages were released, and it was a beautiful operation. Somebody died. I think the brother of the current Prime Minister of Israel died in that operation. But the point I want to make is that military interventions like that are often documented. After the fact, you find the military telling us how it was done. The same thing, even in recent times, that military operation to capture the former president of Venezuela, it was successful. There were reports of what was done. So people asked that question at that time, and it was a good question to ask. 230 girls were abducted, 100 have been released, and subsequently the remaining 130 also released. How did it come about? If you have been able to identify the hideout of these people, if you have been able to know where they kept the girls, it means that the war on terrorism should be over. If you have the intelligence on where these commanders hide, if you have the intelligence on where they keep their victims, then shouldn't we just go out there and confront them and neutralize them and get this war behind us? And that's the question that many people asked at that time. And that was why many people suspected that the Nigerian government paid ransom. But no self-respecting government would admit to ever paying ransom to terrorists or to criminals. Now that the French news agency says it can confirm that, let me point out that the Nigerian government has denied this story. I said, no, it did not happen that way. But you see, the only way that the Nigerian government can credibly deny not paying ransom is to do what? Is to give us the details of how the girls were released. Because, we are not... we are not daft people. Nobody will believe you when you say that, we just threatened them and then they release the girls. That's not the way things happen. So, on the one hand, the French news agency is saying, look, the Nigerian government paid 2 billion naira to get these girls released. On the other hand, the Nigerian government is saying, no, we did not pay any ransom. So, how did you get them released? Did you fight them? If you fought them, did you kill any one of them? If you killed any one of them, can we see pictures of the people who were killed? And not only that, before you fought them, how did you get intelligence to know where they were? If now you have intelligence to know where the terrorists hide and where they keep their victims, well, why have we not really more forcefully attacked them, and why have we not routed them and displaced them from Nigeria? So if Nigeria is paying ransom to terrorists, then our problems are more acute than what we thought before. There's a real problem here. And the problem is even further complicated by the reality that once money is involved, then you must have an idea what is happening. Americans will say, if you want to solve any problem, follow the money. Follow the money. It's always about money. It's always about money. And in the world, it's either about money or about sex. If you follow the money, you're going to find the source of the problem. And the suspicion here is that when you find a government ready to pay ransom to the tune of 2 billion naira, you must actually be very naive to suppose that those who are taking those decisions, again, let me take some steps back. When we talk about government, when we talk about one institution or this or the other, you're not talking about just inanimate entities. You're not just talking about, artificial entities. You're talking about human beings. When you say the government, you're talking about human beings. Because there is no natural person called government. The government is not a natural person that can think for itself. We're talking about the human beings who are in charge of the government, who are thinking for the government, taking actions for the government and taking those decisions. So when you hear that the government has paid 2 billion naira to release abducted, 2 billion naira to terrorists to release abducted, we are talking about the human beings in government. They sat down, they took that decision that 2 billion naira should be paid to the terrorists to release the 230 abducted St. Mary's Catholic School girls. Now, you must be very naive to suppose that those human beings that we call government, who took that decision, were that generous. They were ready to part with all that money and give it to the terrorists to go away. It is not conspiracy theory to begin to suspect that part of that money found its way back to those who took the decision to pay the money to the terrorists. If you call that mere conspiracy theory, I would say that you're just being naive. You're just being naive to suppose that a part of that money did not find its way back to those who took the decision to pay the money to the terrorists in the first place. And if it did, then you begin to question everything. Is it the case? Can you truly trust those in government that they are truly fighting terrorism, or have we become so depraved? Have we become so horrible in our thinking that the people in government are also ready, to profit from this war? They've already been profiting from it. Many people have spoken about hotels built by military senior military personnel in the ravaged states, just because they want the government to put their guests and visitors in those hotels, and they continue to earn so much money. And if indeed 2 billion was paid to the terrorists, how are we going to ever stem the tide of terrorism? It means that when you give money to the people who are terrorizing, you are enabling them. That same money, they will use it to buy more weapons. And so now we are not surprised why these people have sophisticated weapons. So you think about that. Is it the case that those in government are also profiting from this? If that is the case, then our problem is quite acute. If those in government are also profiting financially from this. So maybe we should be praying against those in government as well. Maybe they are enemies as well. And if the people in government are the enemies of the citizens, how horrible the situation of those citizens indeed. If the taxes paid by the citizens are now used to fund the operations of the terrorists, how sad the situation of those citizens indeed. And then you think about the other ramification of all this. And not only that the government officials are themselves probably profiting from this, and not only that the taxes paid by the citizens are now used to fund even further terrorist activities. And then you now begin to understand why the terrorist activities have continued in Nigeria for more than 15 years. And successive governments have been unable to rout out these terrorists. I've said it before, many people attribute this to the former military dictator in Nigeria, Sani Abacha, who said, look, if you have any disturbance in any part of the country that has lasted more than 48 hours, it must be that government officials are complicit in it. Because you have to understand the scale and the nature of the force at the disposal of the government. You have to understand how powerful the government is in terms of military might and military capacity, in terms of the deployment of naked force to suppress any insurrection, to suppress any danger to law and order. So much so, if you understand the scale and the nature of the weapons and force available to the government, you must truly agree that if any such thing continues for more than 48 hours, then there must be the complicity of the government there. The point I'm trying to make here is that yes, although the Nigerian government has denied this and said, look, we did not pay ransom, this is a reminder, but the denial has not been backed up by credible evidence. At this point, we talk about the burden of proof. The burden of proof is now firmly on the Nigerian government, because the Nigerian government has told us that it has rescued 230 children without telling us how the children were rescued. Now, the French news agency has given us an allegation of an explanation on how the girls were rescued. So that's the only credible explanation we have. Silence cannot be an explanation from the Nigerian government. So the burden of proof is on the Nigerian government to tell us how those girls were abducted. And until that is done, we must take what the French news agency has said as something to reflect on, as the only credible explanation so far. But that's the only credible explanation so far of how those 230 girls were abducted. And it should make us really anxious. And again, from a Christian perspective, we begin to see that where sin exists, reproach exists, and where you find people who are so fallen and whose minds are not be transformed by the Lord, who are the rulers of a nation, you find reproach not far away from that nation. That's exactly what we have there. I've always said to many people that at the root of Nigerian problem is corruption. It is corruption, the greed for wealth.
You are listening to GospelBellsRadio.com, the Christian internet radio with a mission to engage the culture with the mind of Christ. Keep listening and invite others, too. God bless you.
Engaging the culture with the mind of Christ.
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 Engaging the culture with the mind of Christ.